Are you lost in the chaotic whirlwind of day-to-day busyness? Do you yearn for a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in your life? Welcome to Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose, the podcast dedicated to empowering women on their journey of self-discovery and finding their true purpose through their own story. I'm your host, Brenda Simmons. Welcome, my friends. I'm so grateful that you are here sharing this day with me today. I am a huge, huge fan of stand-up comedy. I have just always loved stand-up comedy. And my very, very favorite part of stand-up comedy is improv. I love going to the improv shows where they take suggestions from the audience and they come up with different scenarios, and it's super fun. And I just think they are so creative and witty and clever, and it's so engaging with the audience. And it just, like, honestly, just being there makes me laugh. They don't even have to say anything. I just think it's hilarious. So what's super fun is my real estate broker he does a lot of stand-up comedy himself. Like, he's like one of the most funny people that I have ever met in my whole life. And it's so fun to be able to rub shoulders with him. And he even dabbles a little bit in improv. And if you sit and you talk with him for a while, you can tell that he's just a master at it. He's just so good at it. Well, he was teaching us something the other day that I think is really applicable to self-improvement. So he says that one of the techniques that improv comedians use is the yes and technique. Now, what this means is like there's typically two comedians, right? And so they've gotten some information from the audience, and then they start, going back and forth, right? So one comedian gets that initial information, and then they say something, and then the partner comedian takes that and he adds to it, right? So they tend to just build off of what they say. Now, the reason why it's called the yes and technique is because nothing that is said is disputed. It's always accepted. So it's, okay, yes, this is the situation. And then, yes, I accept that. And I'm going to add this other thing to it, right? And so it just continues to build and build and build. So when my broker was talking about this, I was like, that's so intriguing, because I have heard yes and in a different situation. And I think they're really similar. And so I wanted to share this with you today. So there are two opposing mindsets. I mean, obviously there's lots of different kinds, but there's really, when you think about it, when you're considering a yes and mindset, there's only one other opposing, right? And so you've got the yes and mindset, and then opposite that is the yes but mindset, right? And so to illustrate this, I'm going to share with you this TikTok and I'll put the link in it in my show notes, and you'll have to go look at it because it is so fun. So last December, there was the Tour de France, and on this TikTok video, the bikers are going along, it's super rural, and they're going along this farm is what it looks like. So it's this gated area, and this horse comes running up next to these bikers, and it is just going, right? It's booking. Like, he's like, oh my gosh, this is like so much fun. I'm going for this, right? And so the horse goes and goes and goes. Well, there's a fence right there. Well, instead of stopping, the horse doesn't slow down at all. The horse instead jumps over that fence and joins the bikers in their Tour de France race. And what was so interesting is they kept panning back and forth to the bikers, to the horse, and all the things that were happening. And even the announcers were like, I can't believe this is happening. And the bikers are like, what the heck? What's going on here? And pretty soon, you see, they've created this space for the horse to run alongside their biking. And then they go back again later, and the horse is actually leading the pack. And like, they're just giving the horse the space that it needs, whether it's right in the middle of them or in front of them. So they're giving that horse the space that it needs to do what it wants. And you can tell that horse is just having a blast. I mean, the tail's extended, and it's just going, right? And so I loved this video. And when I saw it, not only did it just make me giggle because I thought it was hilarious, but I thought, isn't that so amazing? Like this horse totally inhabited the yes and mindset, right? And so, and really what it means is that horse, instead of having being blocked by that fence, it was, yes, I'm running, and yes, there's a fence, and I'm going to jump over it and do what I want to do. A yes, but mindset horse would have looked at that fence and slowed down and stopped. Yes, I am running with these bikers. Yes, I want to do it, but there's a fence, and so I'm going to stop. So you can see that illustration of the yes and mindset versus the yes but mindset. So let's go over the characteristics of these two opposing mindsets so that we can really take a deeper dive into that. So the characteristics of a yes but mindset is they include, a person is going to repeat their concerns a lot. And they're going to do this without really wanting to find any solutions. They don't necessarily care about the solution. They just care about complaining. And so they're going to be very high drama people. They want to justify their actions or inactions or give excuses as to why solutions presented to them won't work. They will actually say, well, yes, but I can't do that because, or yes, but I'm not like that, or, fill in the blank there, right? So they will actually say yes, but all the time. So these people will also look to rescuers to enable their behavior, or they may even fall prey to predators who will easily take advantage of them. And this really is a cycle that repeats over and over and over again. And so very, very differently, the characteristics of a yes and mindset will look much different. So instead of what the yes but mindset has, the yes and mindset, these are going to be people who have a can-do attitude. They're going to be like, well, like this horse. Well, I've got an obstacle in my way, and I'm going to figure out a way to get over it, right? Literally, in the horse's sense. They're going to be very creative. They're going to find the solutions to their problems. And just like the improv comedians, they're going to accept what comes their way and they're going to build on it. They're going to seek to find people who challenge their goals and who challenge them and help them to reach higher, or coaches who will show them to the way to get where they want to go in reaching their goals. So, and what's interesting is these people, and I've seen this so much in my life, other people will actually make space for yes and people because they want to be around them. And perhaps you've even been around a yes and person, like things just seem possible to them, right? And so you want to be around them because you're like, well, gosh, if I can have some of that, mojo rub off on me, I would love that. Now, eventually, the yes and people are going to lead out. And they're going to be the leaders of the world because they're not going to be inhibited by the yes, but attitude. Now, here's something to consider. Typically, we have a go-to mindset when it comes to yes and versus yes, but we never adopt one all the way. You are going to have times in your life where you are very definitely a yes, but person. And other times when you are so in that yes and phase that you are just going, right? And so we're never totally one or the other. We're going to switch. And you may even feel that in the same day, depending on the situation that you're dealing with. This is okay. What is most important is that you recognize what is going on. Because once you realize that you are in a yes, but phase, you can switch that to be a yes and phase. So to illustrate this, I like to do a lot of educational things, and I'm trying to do more of it really. So I want to do a bread class. So it has totally nothing to do with real estate, and I'm totally fine with that. I just love making bread. And so I wanted to do this bread class series. Well, I had this problem that I couldn't figure out where to do it. Like everywhere that I was looking had some obstacles that I had to overcome, and so I needed a space where people could come and gather. A lot of times your spaces that you can rent don't necessarily have room for people to sit and to observe and whatnot in a class-like style. And so I needed to have that kind of a space, and I needed it to be available on the nights that I needed it to be available. And I needed it for a cost that would work well for me. Well, I just felt like I was hitting dead end after dead end after dead end. And so I realized, and at one point, that I was like, oh, maybe I just won't do it. Right. So I totally was in this yes, but mindset. And it was interesting because it dawned on me, why am I being stopped by a problem that is really nominal? And so I decided, okay, I need to actually just conquer this and figure out a solution. There is a solution out there. I'm going to find it. And so one of my goals this week was to set out to figure out what I could do or how I could solve this problem of where I could do this class. And I'm happy to say that I have already solved that problem and I've got it already done. And so now I can move forward with marketing this class that I'm going to do. So you can see that, I've practiced this stuff all the time and I can still fall into a yes, but mindset. But again, once you recognize it, it's really, really fast to go, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to figure out a solution. And you can very, very quickly move into that yes and mindset. Now, you can take this and apply it in other ways. So let's take a real life application. The more entrenched you are in the yes and mindset, the easier it will be to engage with others the same way. Now, you can tell the people who are, we went through all the characteristics of the yes but versus the yes and mindsets. And you can tell even without them saying a whole lot, just by the energy that they share. It can be really, really hard and really draining to be around a yes but person for long periods of time. Whereas, like I mentioned earlier, the yes and people, you really want to gravitate towards them. So it's really important to understand this dynamic when you're dealing with other people and to be able to help them in a way that is using the yes and technique. So what do I mean by this? Rather than disputing, when somebody comes to you with an idea or a suggestion, even some feedback for you, it is good to accept that with a yes and mindset, right? So rather than disputing their reality or their opinion or their feedback, you can accept it at face value. So that's the yes part. Now, this does not mean that you agree with it, but you can accept it. And so one way to say that is, well, I can appreciate that. I can appreciate where you're coming from. And, and really what that does is it opens the door and it leaves that playing field very, very neutral, because you're not getting upset and you're not getting defensive, but you are accepting what they're saying, right? So, and then something really interesting happens. This then puts you in the position of asking questions. So when you ask questions, the purpose of that is to gather information. It's to understand, not to demean, but to just simply understand where the other person is coming from. And what this does is allows that other person to feel like they are being heard, because they are being heard, because it helps you to listen more. The more questions you ask and the deeper you go into understanding where they're coming from, the more they're going to feel accepted and appreciated and heard. And then this allows for affirmation and for collaboration while reducing the confrontation. However, if you were to go into a situation where you were using the yes, but mindset, you will very, very quickly shut down communication and even shut down the other person. So here's a really simple example. And you may think this is kind of funny because I think it's funny. So when my son was really little, he really wanted to be an ice cream truck driver when he grew up. And obviously he was really little, but that was an interesting conversation that we had because he came and he's like, "Mom, I know what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be an ice cream truck driver. This is going to be so cool." And he just was so excited about that. So there's two ways I could have responded to that. One way is, "Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun, but you're never going to get anywhere in life doing that." Right? So end of discussion, dream destroyed. And you're teaching the other person, in this case, it would have been my son, don't dream. You're not going to measure up. And even if you try to do something that you want to do and that you like, you're not going to make it. Right? So that's the message that you're sharing. And so even though you didn't say, all of those things, that will be a natural progression of, well, if they thought this, then I can, you know, make it a bigger I can interpret it in a bigger way, right? Conversely, if you respond with, that sounds like a lot of fun. What kind of ice cream would you sell? Right? So you are accepting it. There's the yes. And let's build upon that dream. Now, obviously, when you are dealing with a small child and dreams like that, it's a little bit different than somebody who is older and says, "Hey, this is what I want to do. This is going to be amazing." And you're like, "That is the dumbest idea I've ever heard," right? Don't say that. That is a yes, but response. Instead, say, "That is amazing that you feel like that. What led you to that?" And just start asking, and approach it with curiosity, because the more curious you are going to be, the more heard they're going to be. And really what this does is it fosters a can-do attitude, right? Just like you're teaching the other person to have the same kind of mindset, the can-do mindset. And you're going to teach solutions and creativity and so many good things by just exploring that and allowing the person to really come to their own conclusions by the questions that you ask, right? But always coming from the side of curiosity and, well, what would happen if, or how would this work if, and again, you have to be really careful about your tone too, because if you're like, "Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun, but what would you really sell in an ice cream?" Right? I mean, it's like, that's kind of gross ice cream, so you have to be really careful, not only in the words that you use, but in your tone as well. Really, what you're doing is you are teaching people, when you approach others with a yes and mindset, you are instilling in them that same type of mindset. It's kind of like, when, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but people will say, "Treat other people the way in which you want them to act, not the way in which they do act." And really what you're doing is you're building up other people. And so as you approach other people with a yes and mindset, you are expecting them to have to adopt that same kind of mindset. And so it really is a super beautiful thing to do. And I love this technique. I was so tickled when my broker shared it with us, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that just fits right in with what I understand yes and to be." So I hope that you have found this to be valuable and productive for your day. And think a little bit about, how, what how much time do you spend in the yes and versus the yes but mindsets? And if you find yourself in that yes but mindset, very quickly switch on over, and by asking yourself, your own self, those questions, and being open to finding those solutions. So I have one ask for you guys. If you would please submit a podcast review, I would sure appreciate that. It really helps me to move my podcast along. And I just am so grateful for all that you do to help me out. And it just means a whole lot to me that you take the time to listen and to engage with me. And until next time, please know that your purpose is in your story. Take care.
Celebrate your dreams, let them take flight, for you are a star, shining bright in every step you take. Let your